Bizarre indeed as it may seem, reports coming in last night from across the country say UFOs were spotted all over the place. Stories of strange flying objects lighting up the night sky abound. So have visitors from outer space finally decided to check out Ireland?
Captain, can you describe what you saw today?
Well, we saw a globular object approximately 5 miles ahead of us. At first, the frontal cross-section area of this object was so small that I thought it was an aircraft with a highly swept-backed wing. But as it got closer to us and below us, it was obvious that it had no wings at all. And I then considered it to be a meteorological balloon. After it passed us by, from first to last sight was approximately 10 seconds, and it then occurred to me that the speed of closing was so great that it couldn't possibly be a free balloon. I have no idea what it could be, and I passed the report to London Airways.
How big was the object?
Well, it's very difficult to assess the size of any object whilst flying. All I can say, the closest I can get to it, is that it was smaller than a Viscount.
Was it travelling at any great speed?
Well, the closing speed of both the object and my own aircraft was up in the region of 1,000 miles an hour, which means that the object itself must have been doing at least 600 to 700 miles an hour.
Were there any windows in it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Was it powered in any way?
Well, it must have been powered. A free balloon we would only approach it at the speed of our own aircraft, which is 300 miles an hour. So it must have been powered. The speed of closing was much too great for it to be a free balloon.
Did anybody else witness the object?
Yes, First Officer Murphy, my co-pilot.
When Top Gun pilots tangle with UFOs, the world sits up and listens. But it's not just military personnel who are encountering mysterious objects in the clouds. It's also highly trained commercial pilots. And one of the most extraordinary sightings took place very close to home, off the west coast of Ireland, in November 2018. British Airways flight BA94 was en route from Montreal, Canada to London Heathrow. 9 hours into an uneventful Atlantic crossing, something inexplicable happened. Out of the cockpit window, the pilots noticed a strange bright orb streaking across the dawn sky. So she made contact with Shannon Air Traffic Control, and this is a real-time recording of that conversation.
Any military traffic you got right now?
There's nothing showing on either primary or secondary.
Okay, it was moving so fast, in fact, you can no longer see it, but yes, thank you.
Alongside you?
Just get to come up on our left-hand side and then rapidly veer to the north, being so bright light, and then it just disappeared at a very high speed. We were just wondering. We didn't think it was a likely collision course, we were just wondering what that could have been.
The speed was astronomical.
A second witness, a Norwegian airline pilot, had also seen something strange.
There appeared to be multiple objects following the same sort of trajectory, but very bright where we were.
And then a third pilot, aboard Virgin Flight 76, reported the same thing.
Also saw that in our 11 o'clock position. Saw two bright lights, 11 o'clock, seem to back over to the right and then climb away at speed, at least from our perspective.
Okay, just so you know that other aircraft in the air have also reported the same thing, so we're going to have a look and see.
But it wasn't just me? No, yeah, very interesting that one.
This unique UFO encounter, witnessed by seasoned pilots, is one of the most credible mysteries of the modern age. What did the pilots really see that November morning? And are we ready to discover the truth? But what makes this sighting off the west coast of Ireland in 2018 even more extraordinary is that it was not a one-off. In fact, it was just the beginning.
Now, what did you see? What drew your attention to the sky in the first instance?
Well, it was my wife Kathleen who first drew my attention to it. She pointed out something which looked like an airplane. But after some time, a minute or so, we saw that it wasn't because of the shape, number one, and the lights. And at this stage it consisted of, to our mind, it looked like a cloud with two lights shining out of it, but they weren't flashing on and off as you would see in an aeroplane. When we had travelled about 2 miles of the road, it had dropped to a level of about 100 feet from the ground.
And how far away from it were you from it at this time?
It's very difficult to say, but it looked like 150 to 200 yards. It was more or less hovering at this stage.
Could you see a shape at this stage?
No, just a massive light.
And it was coming down from the sky?
It had come down, and at this stage it was hovering.
And what about colours? Was it red or white or what?
It consisted of 3 colours, an orange and crimson light, which seemed to be coming more from the top of the object, the whole thing was surrounded then by a mass of bluish fog or vapour, which more or less obscured the whole object.
Well, what was its shape?
It was spherical, half a sphere, I suppose you could describe it.
And did it actually come down and touch the ground?
Well, I had been looking at it. When we got to the point where we saw it hovering, I stopped the car, switched off the lights and engine, to see if I could hear any noise. There was no noise from it. It was moving in a kind of a backward, forward direction and dropping very slowly. I was looking over a 5-foot fence, and Kathleen at this stage got quite frightened.
Well, what frightened you about it, Mrs. Shelley?
I just couldn't understand what it was.
Well, what did you think it was?
Well, I did think it was some, I won't say flying saucer, some identified object, something I had never seen before, something unnatural, to my mind.
Yes. Did you get out of the car at this
No,
stage?
I didn't. I stayed inside and I called John.
But you had a clear view of it?
Yes, I could. The window was down and I could see it, probably not as well as John saw it at the stage when it was hovering. But I was watching it the whole time while it was descending from the sky.
And indeed, it's just what John said it was. You saw just what he saw.
Exactly. We discussed it afterwards just to make sure, and we did see exactly the same thing.
And when your wife called you to get back into the car, had the thing landed at this stage?
Well, it was just dropping below eye level at this stage, and my reaction then was to go down after it. And I was just about to climb the fence when Kathleen called me back.
And discretion being the better part of valor, you went.
I went, yes.
Well, now let's just look at some of the possibilities. Do you think it could have been a meteorological balloon or something?
This was my first thought, actually, that it could have been something like that. But then, of course, I don't know very much about meteorological balloons, but I would have thought that it couldn't drop so fast from the sky. It dropped that distance in less than 3 minutes.
Or possibly have been 30 feet on the height of a house.
Yes.
But what about bog mist of some sort? Did this occur to you?
It did occur to me, yes.
Well, now, you've had a week or more to reflect on this. Have you thought what it could possibly be?
I'm keeping an open mind on it. I'm not convinced of anything yet.
But the Shelleys were not the only ones to make this odd sighting. Young Ellen O'Donnell was coming home 1.5 hours later with her boyfriend when she saw the lights too.
I saw this strange object. I can't... over there, and...
Up against the hill?
Yes, up against the hill, and I just said to Teddy, there's something over there, and he said, don't mind it.
What colour was it, Ellen?
Oh, every colour, orange, crimson. I think there were a slight,
There were lights coming out of it?
No, not exactly.
What shape was it, would you say?
Shape.
Was
It's more round than anything else, I'd say. I'd say it was just something...
An aeroplane, maybe?
No, I wouldn't say that at all.
What about some sort of mist? Could it have been
No,
mist?
I wouldn't say that either, because it was something I never saw before, and...
Well, did it frighten you?
Yes, it did.
What did you do? Did you go straight home?
I jumped into Teddy's arms.
And off you went then, did you?
No, well, we saw it, we were walking and we saw it, you know.
But was it the moon? Suppose it was the moon.
No, it wasn't the moon, no, definitely.
Or some stars?
No. Just something I just couldn't really describe it. It wasn't stars or the moon for that matter.
It was in this field, not far from the Mullinahone creamery, that the Shelleys saw the object hover. And because it was suggested to us by Mr. Desmond Leslie, who's something of a UFO expert, that we should have the ground hereabouts tested for residual radiation possibly left by this object, we asked Mr. Eddie Bergham, the South Tipperary Civil Defence Officer, and his assistant, Mr. Eddie O'Neill, to sweep the area with Geiger counters.
Our instruments recorded no radioactivity of any description.
Nothing at all?
Nothing at all, no.
Not just nothing unusual?
Nothing at all, actually.
If the radioactivity was present at today, it certainly would have shown on the instruments.
Well, now, it's a fortnight roughly since this sighting was made. Suppose something had landed there that made the area radioactive. Would there be a possibility that all traces of it would have disappeared by now?
It's quite possible. I mean, it would depend on the intensity of the initial radiations, and we know that radioactivity decays according to a certain law, which is known as the 7/10 law. In other words, if for every 7 multiple of the time, the radiations decrease to 1/10 of their intensity.
So that if there was some radiation there, what you're saying is it could have disappeared by now?
Well, it could be so slight that it wouldn't be picked up by our instruments.
Mr. Bergen, if you'd found anything there, would you have been surprised?
I would undoubtedly have been surprised.
Mr. O'Neill, would you have been surprised?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I think I would have been surprised, yes. But as Mr. Burton says, the instruments didn't show anything. It's possible that an initial radiation there could have decayed over the past 15 days, but as I say, I don't think I expected to find any radiation present.
Ireland has become a UFO hotspot. Last year, 105 UFO sightings were reported to Irish authorities. And it's not just pilots seeing these anomalous objects. Ordinary people are capturing an increasing number of mysterious sightings on their mobile phones. And we've managed to get hold of video evidence of some of the most recent examples. The first one is Annalong, County Down.
Right.
And this is strange, Sarah. Is it a disc? Is it an orb?
It's almost, look, see, the bird went past and you can see that's a solid object, whereas this is almost opaque.
So you're saying it's a balloon?
Potentially, but it's moving rather fast.
It's moving really quickly. If that was a balloon, it wouldn't move that quickly.
It depends on the wind speed of the day.
Oh, true, I suppose.
And it's the fact it's slightly opaque, that's what, it makes me curious.
Okay, let's go to Belfast now.
Okay.
Now look at that. It's
a plane.
You're reckoning
That
that's
is a plane. Look at the shape of it. Oh, hang on,
Well,
is
to
it
me, it
this
looks like
over here? Look, that's the plane. No, look at this though.
Yeah, that's a plane, and that's travelling so much quicker than it. Can we just go back a minute? Just go back. There you go. Yeah, so we got that there.
Yep.
Which I think looks like a plane.
Agreed.
But that doesn't look like that. Look.
Then if you go slightly forward, wait. There.
There.
Yeah.
Here. There.
That's something we can't explain.
It is reported there were sightings of sorts of some sort of aircraft or unidentified flying object over part of the northwest region last night. A lot of reaction to this on social media. A lot of people saying they reported having witnessed unidentified silent flying objects being described as being similar to B-2 bombers flying at low altitude. We're told from our listeners that there were reported sightings in Sligo town, in Bundoran, in Ballyshannon and in coastal areas. So what is going on, or what was going on in the skies over the northwest last night?
Now, you've been causing, Jeremy, another stir online with new military-leaked UAP footage. This new one you've dubbed the jellyfish. But tell us here on the 6 o'clock show why this new sighting is so important.
Right, yeah, so this has actually been causing a stir, not just online, but around the world and also within the Department of Defense. This is the first time in history the public gets to see what they call an incursion of a military base by a UAP or UFO in a conflict zone. So this one is so important because, first of all, it's very strange looking. They didn't know what to identify it. They call it a UAP. It could do advanced maneuvers, but it's not ours, it's not Russia's, it's not China's. So they don't know whose it is, so they call it a UAP or UFO. The reason this one was called the jellyfish was because of the maneuvers that it did. It was able to descend into the water for 17 minutes with no inertial effect. This thing came up out of the water and shot off. We don't have anything that can do that like this. So this is a real head scratcher.
Now, Jeremy, I'm sure with your line of work, you are inundated with emails, videos of people having sightings of UAPs. But how do you make sure like videos like this, like the jellyfish, are legit and not a hoax?
Yeah.
Right. So that's a really important step in the process. You know, they say extraordinary claims, needs an extraordinary, what I say, investigation. So that's what I did. My partner in investigation is George Knapp. He's one of the old school investigative reporters that has been on this topic from the very beginning. How we know that the footage we get is authentic is that, first of all, this is a leak. This is a leak within the intelligence community within the United States. So when that comes to us, we need to vet it. So it took us 3.5 years to really know for sure that this footage was not only hoaxed, but additionally, it was a credible threat. It was considered a credible threat by our military. So this is not like your friend with an iPhone standing out at a fair, right? Yeah. This is a big deal. This is an incursion.
And on that note, last year, a US government whistleblower called David Grush, he came forward about a secret US government program around reverse engineering alien spacecrafts. Let's hear what he and members of the US Air Force had to say.
The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had, and you could put that anywhere. We have nothing that can stop in midair and go the other direction, nor do we have anything that can, like in our situation, come down from space, hang out for 3 hours, and go back up.
We would see these objects being at 0.0 Mach, that's zero airspeed, over certain pieces of the ground. So what that means, just like a river, if you throw a bobber in, it's going to float downstream. These objects were staying completely stationary in Category 4 hurricane winds.
Like George Knapp breaking Area 51, he's the reason I knew about that.
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
A very powerful testimony there from David, Jeremy. How has the Congress and the Senate dealt with this and these revelations?
Right. Well, as you can see from that footage, it is a UFO revolution. That is from a Tubi special, the platform Tubi. And I'm featured in it. It shows the work that we did to get this in front of Congress. And to be honest, they're pissed. They're pissed. They want answers. They know they've been lied to, not just our country, but your country as well. So that's the issue. So how they're responding to it is they're digging for answers. They're fighting for answers. They want to know the truth that our government has about UFOs. They know they've been lied to.
Now, I'm sure there are many other testimonies out there. I'd like to get your personal opinion on this, Jeremy. Do you think David Grush's public stance on UAPs has encouraged other whistleblowers to come forward?
That's a big deal, and I have direct insight into that. Whistleblowers come forward to me and to George Knapp. We have our show Weaponized, and we have exposed some of that. Like the head of the DIA, which is an intelligence agency, said, we have a spacecraft, and we've been able to get inside of it. That was exposed on my show. So yes, other whistleblowers are encouraged by David Grush. And also how we treat whistleblowers in the United States is really important, especially on this topic, to make sure that information does come forward to Senate and to Congress. So that's what we're seeing, is a lot of encouragement.
And on that note, supposedly those in the know, they refer to aliens as non-human intelligence. Why is that? What does it actually mean, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's really important, and thank you for highlighting that. So when you say the word alien, it makes me think of, little green men from another planet. We don't know where UFOs are from. We don't know who are controlling them. They also testified in Congress, David Grush did, that there were what he called biologics. So when you say non-human intelligence, you're just not making an assumption that you understand the origin of where this other intelligence is from. But we know it's not non-human. And we know there's a biological aspect. Now, you know, potatoes, you could call them aliens, but it's a better way to say non-human intelligence.
Okay. Now, if everything around UFOs and non-human intelligence is true, why do you think governments are so scared and keeping this a secret from all of us?
True.
Yeah, governments are not scared about this. What they want is a technological advantage. When we get a crash or a crash retrieval program, they're trying to reverse engineer or exploit derivative technologies. They're trying to see what we can do to get an edge in combat and warfare. It's national security. I understand that. UFOs are considered higher than weapons of mass destruction because of the propulsion systems. So look, bottom line is our governments are trying to do their best usually, but what they're trying to do is get an advantage because everybody knows this is real within government who has ever dealt with this. And they know that it's something that we can learn from, but they're not going to go around screaming that this is real and destigmatizing it until we know what's going on.
Now, looking ahead to the rest of the year, what developments do you predict in the field of UAP disclosures?
Well, look, man, I don't have a crystal ball. I cannot predict the future. I don't even know when my alarm clock's going to go off, even when I set it. But what I can say for sure is that people have been encouraged. They have come forward to me and to George Knapp. We are getting them in front of Congress. We are getting them in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And that information, some of it will be going public. So my prediction for 2024 is what I know is going to happen. More people are coming forward with firsthand direct knowledge of these government programs reverse engineering UFOs.
Are there any revelations, Jeremy, that you think the public should be prepared for in 2024?
Yeah, if you don't know by now, then it's time to catch up. And if you don't catch up, you're going to be left behind. This is not something that should be shrouded in secrecy. This is not something that should be overlaid with stigma. This is a real issue, and people are on a daily basis encountering UAP or UFOs in our military and in other militaries around the world. So people should really know is they got to look up. They have to understand this is coming, whether they like it or not.
Fascinating. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us on the 6 o'clock show. Give it up for Jeremy in sunny LA. And you can listen to Jeremy and George Knapp's podcast, Weaponized, wherever you get your podcasts.